Okay. Thank you, Camelia. Good evening, everyone. We are inviting people into the Zoom and we'll be starting this shortly. We are also hoping that one other commissioner will be joining soon. So just give us a couple minutes and we will start the meeting if that's okay with everyone. Plus our new planning director seems to be off camera and we need him here. There he is. Should we start and wait for Commissioner Dustin to join, or should we
contact him? I always worry about
I will text him real quick and
technological difficulties.
Yeah. I texted him. Since it is 7:02, should I at least start with the normal preamble? Thank you everyone for joining us on this March 23rd, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. I think that we should begin. Camelia, if you would do the call to order. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Dustin says he's in the waiting room. Camelia.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I can do a roll call. Chair Boyle,
Present.
Commissioner Chang,
Present.
Commissioner Dustin,
Here.
Commissioner Wright,
Here.
and alternate Commissioner Okazaki.
He needs to unmute.
Yeah, he's on mute. He is present.
Yes, President. I think they're facing technical difficulties.
I will say we know that Vice Chair Brody will not be here, so
Aye.
Okay, President. Okay.
Sorry, we're having some technical problems here.
It's okay. So alternate Commissioner Okazaki, because Vice Chair Brody is not here tonight, you will be a voting member of the commission, just so you know. Okay. Well, I thank you all for being here. I'm going to go over the usual verbiage that we need to discuss prior to the meeting. As always, the agenda has been posted 72 hours in advance at the City Hall, the Public Library, the Recreation Department, as well as the website. Each commissioner has received the plans and staff comments and has reviewed every item on the agenda and visited each site. The general order for hearing each case will be as follows. We will ask staff to discuss the case and provide background information and a recommendation. We will ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to comment on the proposal. The hearing will then be open to the public and we will ask for comments for, against, or about the project. We will take comments from in-person participants. Well, I guess that doesn't matter. We will take comments from the participants in the virtual world. And then in all cases, please come forward and give your name and address before speaking. When speaking on an item, please do not repeat comments previously made, but rather acknowledge agreement with previous speakers. However, please present any additional comments I will also add that we do try to limit comments to the 3-minute time limit, and so keep any comments brief as possible. At the conclusion of the public comments, the applicant will have a chance to respond, but no further comments from the public will be accepted. We will then ask for comments from each of the commissioners. Most of the cases will involve variances, conditional use permits, and/or design review. The commission will discuss and act on each one individually. In each case, variances will be considered first, then conditional use permits, and finally design review. If there is no motion for approval or denial, the Planning Commission has the option of continuing the application to a future meeting. In the event of a denial, it is hoped that the applicant will have heard comments during the public comment period and during deliberations that will be useful in resubmittal of an application. It is important for the property owner to understand that once a project is approved by the commission, the drawings become legal documents. If any changes are made to the project subsequent to approval without obtaining proper approval of those changes, then the property owner is in fact breaking the law. There is a risk of having to change the project back to the original approved design or paying a fine to the city of San Marino equal to the greater of 5% of the project valuation or $2,500, and then resubmitting the changes made to the project to the commission. It is also important to understand that there is a 15-day appeal period after action has been taken for the applicant or any interested party to request the city council to review and act on the case. The commission will usually take items in order shown on the agenda. Occasionally we'll take them out of order if there is a large number of people here on one item, which is not the case tonight. That item may be taken ahead of others as a courtesy to those present. The commission will also not start any new item after 11 p.m. Items not heard will be carried over to an adjourned meeting or to the next regular meeting. At this time, I would like to ask if there are any public items that are not on the current agenda that has been published. Seeing none. Before we call for the first agenda item, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce everybody to our new planning director, Isidro Rodriguez. Oh my God, all of a sudden I felt like I just messed up your name. Figueroa. Oh, okay. Hi, Isidro Figueroa. I called you Rodriguez. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you all to our new planning director and give him an opportunity to introduce himself and to say any opening words.
Thank you, Chair Boyle. So I just want to just say hello, and obviously I've already met with Chair Boyle, and I spoke with Commissioner Bright as well. So it's a pleasure and honor to be here before you. I have great confidence that we will work great together and do great things to help maintain this city a great community. And so one of the things that I do want to try to do more often is have a director's report in which I would like to communicate to the Planning Commission outcomes from the City Council, future agenda items, anything new regarding state law, informational items, nothing of substance that will require the items to be agendized. I think that's a great way to keep the Planning Commission informed. One example would be, anytime there's an appeal to the City Council from one of the decisions made from the Planning Commission, I think it would be a great way to communicate when a project is appealed and what that decision is once it's made by the City Council, so that the Planning Commission is aware of that. But it's a great way to communicate and just keep Planning Commission informed. And I look forward to a great working relationship, as I said before. And it's so far, almost 2 months. It's just, great staff, a great community, and I'm really excited to the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I guess with that, let us begin with the first agenda item, which is the resolution of findings for design review number DR 21-59. Staff, can we have the report? I know it's not really a report, but
Yes, so this item was brought before you at the last planning commission in January, and it was decided and voted on to deny 3-2. And so we are bringing before you the denial resolution to be approved for this project.
commissioners, any comment? Yes,
Move
Commissioner
to
Ray.
approve.
I have a quick question for staff or maybe for Commissioner Wright as well. I think I need to abstain from this vote. Is that not correct? I recused myself from the original project review.
I'll let the city attorney, I have an answer, but I'll let the city attorney answer.
Yes, you abstained at the January meeting, so I think that should be the.
I assume that would be proper. Okay, thank you.
To abstain. We still have a quorum to vote
If
on.
anybody cares, but I agree.
Do we have a second? Okay, I'll second.
It's just memorializing.
Yeah. So let's do a roll call for this resolution.
Okay. So Chair Boyle,
Yes.
okay. Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
let's see, Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
and Commissioner Okazaki.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 4-0. Pass.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 2, the design review case number DR 21-14 HP. Staff, could we please have the report?
Yes. So this proposal involves the demolition of an existing 2,629 square foot single family residence and 1-story. And they're proposing to construct a 3,595 square foot single family residence, 2 stories with a 490 square foot detached 2-car garage, including 155 square foot rear patio, 138 square foot front porch, pool and spa to the rear, improvements to the existing circular driveway, and the removal of 1 heritage tree. The new residence will be designed as a Monterey Revival architectural style. And I'm going to pull up the little slide I have here. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
Okay. So here I have an outline, the existing on the left and the proposed on the right, just to clarify some questions we've received in regards to the design review process of approving circular driveways and also in regards to impervious surface in the front yard that exceeds 25%. The existing property has a legal non-conforming circular driveway, which they are proposing to put in repave in its existing location and footprint with the reduction of some square footage in hardscape. As you can see here, the existing property is at 40% and the proposed is going to be reduced to 35%. So this illustration is just showing the differences, but also clarifying that it's going to be in the circular driveway portion is going to be in its same location. And along with this project, they're requesting the removal of 1 tree, which is indicated here in this red circle, and it's a carrotwood tree, which is being requested to be removed because that is a proposed location of a driveway to access the 2-car garage to the rear. And then I have called out these because those also have a question. We received questions on where the replacement trees for that requested tree removal would be. And so we have 3 new trees in its place. One 36-inch box to the rear east side of the proposed home, and then 2 to the front, a 24-inch and then another 36-inch box of trees. This concludes my illustration part. But to conclude the presentation in general, excuse me, computers. Staff and planning finds that the proposed project meets all the required findings for a design review, and that it meets all of the code requirements for a new home. I am available to answer any questions, and the applicant and the architect are also online to answer any questions as well.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? No?
I do.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Let's see. Can you tell me what time period the story poles were in place on this project?
That would actually be a question that the applicant can answer better
Okay.
because by the time I came on, the story poles were already removed.
All right, I'll ask the applicant that question. So maybe this also is a question for the applicant. I'm just curious why the story poles were removed prior to this meeting.
I can't answer that. So the project was hopefully was going to go before the December Planning Commission meeting. That did end up happening, and the story poles were up for several months. And
Wait,
so
did you say the December Planning Commission?
I'm sorry, an earlier one,
Oh,
in November, and it didn't work out. And so as the story poles were up for a while, the applicant asked at the time interim Community Development Director Hamilton if they can take down their story poles, and he granted them the ability to do so. So attachment number 10 of the report shows all the story pole photos.
I did
And
see those, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. And then can you just give me a little background on, this project has some long legs then apparently, because it was originally scheduled to go in November of last year. How did that affect notification of the neighbors about tonight's meeting? Do you know when they last received notice that this would be discussed at tonight's meeting?
I can pull up another attachment was also the neighborhood input letters. Let me see if I can pull that up real quickly. Staff did notice the required time period of 10 days to the neighbors in regards to this planning commission meeting that it was going to be presented to. And I did receive one call from a resident who received a notice. Other than that, I hadn't received anything else from either email or phone call from the rest of the recipients. Let me see if I can pull up the neighborhood input letter timeline. So it seems that, so this is going to be attachment number 9.
Yes.
They were done back in October, give or take, around October.
So in October, they were told that the meeting would take place in March?
So typically when a project is either submitted complete or we're getting towards completeness, we then indicate to the applicant that they can start to let the neighbors know and provide these neighborhood input letters so they receive the most up-to-date plans. But at the time, it's still not, even though they can reach out to their neighbors, it's not certain about the exact date that we would bring the project before the Planning Commission.
Okay, so I guess that's what I'm trying to find out is how do we know when the neighbors were told that this discussion would take place at tonight's meeting? I'm just concerned that if it was in October of last year and that's the last they heard of it, it doesn't surprise me that no one is here.
Well, we also sent out the required public noticing to the same neighbors that were then part of the neighborhood input letter.
And that went out 10 days ago?
Yes, that was
Okay.
the 11th of March.
Okay, that's what I needed to hear.
So
Perfect.
so just to clarify, the neighbors looked at the plans in late October 2021, but then 10 days ago, they were notified that this would be presented to the planning commission today.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then bear with me, I just have a couple more questions. Can you just give me a rough summary of what type of guidance and feedback the applicant has received from staff on this proposed project? I did read, you know, there's a brief one sentence line in the agenda report, but I just wanted to know if there was anything else, or was that also prior to your arrival? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So, your question, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Well, typically we would get like a short paragraph of information that city staff has given to the applicant from the time that they first appeared at the front desk saying, I want to do this project. We usually get like a little bit of a summary of what types of things they were advised on, that kind of thing. And I mean, if you want, I can give you in the staff report. Hold on, let me find it. It was just a real short blurb though, about one sentence. And that might be just because you were not here when the project started, and I certainly would understand that.
I see what you're referencing now. Yeah, it was on the second page, the preliminary
Yeah.
consultation.
Right there. And it was just that one sentence about that they advised, the staff advised them on procedures.
Yes,
That's
it is quite light there because the staff here, none of the staff here were part of the initial project. So referencing going back in the documents we do have, all I have is that the May 4th was when the first incomplete letter, like correction letter, was sent out to the applicant.
Okay, that I assume that was what this case was. Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Any other commissioners have questions? Seeing none, could we please have the applicant or the applicant's representative talk about this project?
Yes. Hi, can I speak now?
Yes.
Hey, hi, yeah, I introduce myself. I'm Leo, architect. And address is 1445 Huntington Drive, Suite 230, South Pasadena. Yeah, I've been working with the owner for this project for almost 2 years. The owner has been living in city of San Marino for over 30 years. And he would like to rebuild this house because his family is growing. Now he got a third generation already to enjoy this house. So that's why they would like to rebuild this out of date house. Yeah, then the house was designed, according to all the design and code requirement. No, for the house itself, there's no variance or modification requested, and the style, just as the Camellia the presentation presented, the style is a Monterey revival style. You can notice there are several house Monterey revival style house around the neighborhood. We like to try to be compatible with this neighborhood. And mainly with the project was brought to the planning commission was this non-conforming circular driveway. Yeah, we would like to the owner would like to keep the driveways mainly for the safety reason, because considering the traffic along the California Boulevard, the circular driveway will help to reduce, avoid any, minimize the turning around into the California Boulevard. So that's our main concern. And go go back to that the commissioner's question, how comes this story pole were removed before the meeting? We did apologize for this removal, you know, so planning commission doesn't have a chance to see the story pole because the story pole was erected back to the last October when we received the green light, you know, from the previous the planner Eva, and you know, now there's because there's a pandemic with us. So a lot of things also happens, and we know that there are staff change. So this project was hand on there for almost 4 months, and this after the, you know, those couple of storm, windstorm last year and this early January, you know, this story pole company, they highly, you know, advise the owner to remove the pole for the safety reason. So that, and also they charge a lot extra for this, you know, story pole over 1 month. So that's mainly it's a safety reason because the owner, he got a lot of family and grandkids visit the house. And so they we decided to remove the story pole, but we did take some pictures and the video of the story pole for the planning commissioner's review. All right, and yeah, we did believe this this new house will be improvement to this community. So your support will be appreciated for this house to can be continued, and so and I will be available for any question you may have. Thank you. That's all my presentation, and I would like to invite the owner, Mr. Wayne, to speak as well. David, are you there?
Good evening, everyone. I would say thank you for all for coming together to review my application. And my wife Millie and I, we've been San Marino resident more than 30 years. We love the community. We raise our family here, and we enjoy the neighborhood because the house is getting old. So we found out mostly major part would need to be either repair or replace. So we decided, since we wanted to live here for so the rest of our life, so we pull together our saving and we decide that we should rebuild, and so we could enjoy the community for the rest of our life. And that's why we start the project with Leo's help and with the city staff's help. We are grateful to, and we are able to complete the requirement, and hopefully with your blessing, we can move forward with the project. And we did appreciate the city staff keep working during the pandemic time and that make this project come true. I'll leave it back to the commissioners.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or their representative?
I do.
Okay.
I just didn't want to monopolize, but
Yeah, no,
if somebody
please.
else has anything to say, then I'll ask. I just want to clarify, because there are several different heights referenced to the height of the main structure in the plans. This project is to be 27 feet 1 inch, is that correct?
The overall height is 27 feet 1 inch, correct?
Thank you. on table 5 of the arborist report, there's some discrepancies between what I see on the arborist report and what I see on the plans. Table 5 of the arborist report indicates that 8 trees are to be removed, whereas the plans indicate 5 trees. Can you just clarify that discrepancy? It is 5 trees?
And would it be due to we are to relocate to king palm tree? Would that make the difference?
Well, on the arborist report, it indicates you're removing the crepe myrtle. On the plans, it says you're not. And also there's one citrus tree that you're indicating on the arborist report. It says it is being removed, but the plans state that it is remaining.
Few fruit tree in the backyard, but one of them we intended to remain only.
It's going to stay. Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right. And I just wanted to make a note of clarification because I think the arborist is under some misconceptions in the arborist report. It seems to indicate that 6 of the 13 trees that he identified in the report are not protected. That really is not accurate. I think he meant to say they're not heritage trees. But in fact, there are 4 trees that you are planning to remove that are protected according to the tree ordinance. So you should probably give that feedback to your arborist.
Okay, will do.
And then I have one last question on the exterior lighting fixtures. And specifically, I'm referring to the wall mount fixtures. You indicate a manufacturer and a style, but you don't give a model number. That particular style of wall fixture comes in 3 sizes. Do you happen to know the specific size that you're proposing to use?
Right now, we like to propose a medium size. I believe that's the 14-inch height.
16 and a quarter, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I will open up to the public now for any public comments for, against, or about this project. I do not see anybody and I see no chat comments. So I'm now closing the public portion of this agenda item, and it is now just for commissioner deliberation. Commissioner Chang, can you start us off?
Sure. I think the overall project is a good project. I do feel that the overall massing is a little bit large. Compared to the other Monterey style homes on California, I think what's different here is the circular driveway. And so, you know, in how the proposed new construction's going to be sited, it's going to be kind of closer. The massing will be closer to the street than it currently exists. And I think that way it does provide a massing that's not necessarily compatible with the streetscape and the neighboring homes. So, and then I also feel like it's pretty tall with the 10-foot and 9-foot plate heights on the first and second floor. So I'd like to see some reduction overall in the scale of the height, as well as potentially additional setback if possible. And then to the west elevation of the front of the home, facing the home on the west elevation, you know, there is, I guess, a bedroom on that side, and that protrudes pretty far out from the massing of the structure, which makes the overall home feel particularly unbalanced. which I also feel like it doesn't necessarily remain compatible with itself and the overall style of the Monterey style homes on the street. Outside of those comments, I think with those changes or some modifications, I'd be able to consider the project, but it's not ready for me at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. Commissioner Wright, do you have comments?
Yes, actually, Commissioner Chang stole my thunder.
Oh,
I agree with a lot of his comments. I also think the massing is a problem. I think the plate heights, that's a problem. It needs to be reduced. The lot size is 11,599, and trying to get this to the maximum on that street, like planning pointed out, this house is 407 feet larger than the average square footage on that in the legal neighborhood, and the two on either side are on the smaller side of that legal neighborhood. So I just don't think it's compatible with that legal neighborhood as to the size or the plate height. I think and your comment about the front yard setback also was a good one, and that troubles me because they're allowed to replace that driveway, and so I'm not sure they could. We could have them comply with what prevailing setback, because everybody knows I like the prevailing setback. I just think it always makes for a cleaner street. So if they could do more of a prevailing setback, I think that would help with the massing as well. But I'm not sure how that works with the driveway. I don't normally like circular driveways, especially in those areas. But I do think in this case, with that busy street, it does make sense. So even if we could erase it, could eliminate it, I probably would not, because I do think that's a good point, that it's a very, very busy street. I would like to point out that as far as the finding goes that planning gave us, it really seemed to emphasize the design when it talked about compatibility. And I think that compatibility is a lot more than just design. And as Commissioner Chang pointed out, and I'm reiterating, massing is a very big part of compatibility, at least for this commission. And so I think we need to keep that in mind when we think about compatibility findings. Let's see, what else do I have? I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and I just want to add too that I had asked about the story poles as well, because I was really bothered by that when I went to visit the site. So I'm not blaming the applicant, but I'm just saying that made it a lot harder. They also, their sign was behind like I think foliage or whatever. You couldn't even see the sign that was the house that was being reviewed by the city. So I do think that was unfortunate. But even without those story poles, I think we all can tell it's a little too massive. Right, so those are my comments.
thank you so much. Commissioner Okazaki, do you have comments?
You need to unmute.
You're muted.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry. I personally don't think that the height is that bad. But I wouldn't mind being reduced if possible in terms of the massing. I understand as I was looking at the plan that was in the agenda items, I could see there were 7 poles in the front. I could see why they were in a hurry to get rid of it, because it looks very unsafe if we do have people coming to visit them in the evening or night. You could run into those poles. So I see why, for safety reasons, they did remove it. But I was disappointed that I didn't see it when I got there. But the pictures provided for me, a perspective. Yeah, I guess it would be nice if it was set back more to be more in line with some of the other buildings. But, you know, personally, I thought that this project would improve the neighborhood on the north side of California. The 2 stories are consistent with there's 2 buildings to the east of this 2221. They both are very similar in design, and this project will be similar to that, except a little bit closer to the street than the other 2. But other than that, I didn't have any major objections. I do understand that you need to remove the palm tree and the cottonwood for the driveway. So anyway, I'm in generally support of this project. But if the rest of the commissioners want additional consideration of the architect and the owner, I would not object to that either. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Weston.
Thank you. So before I get into my comments on the design aspects of the proposal, I just wanted to share that I noted that the neighborhood area comparison table that's on page 3 of the agenda report, I think Commissioner Wright referred to it. It does not contain the same set of properties that are indicated in the legal neighborhood in attachment 3, which concerned me. I wasn't sure why there was that discrepancy. I did a recalculation based on the properties listed in attachment 3, which is the legal neighborhood. I did make one methodology change. I used my calculation using the current livable area of the subject property rather than the proposed area. And I think that's appropriate because we're looking for compatibility with the neighborhood as it exists, not a neighborhood that might exist. So using those properties, the average lot size is 13,172 square feet as opposed to the 14,822 noted in the agenda report. And the average livable area is 2,726 square feet as opposed to the 3,193, which makes the proposed square footage of the project 869 square feet larger than the average livable area in the legal neighborhood, rather than the 407 that was indicated in the agenda report. So I thought that was important to note. I'm sorry, was there a comment?
I said, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So now I'll get into my design comments. And again, Commissioner Wright had made a comment that staff commented mostly on the size and the siting, but not really so much the design. I will give you plenty of comments on the design. And I'm going to do something a little different tonight because we only have one project and I think we have enough time. But when I go through and I do my comments, I reference pretty much everything that I say back to the residential design guidelines. I don't note that publicly, but I have it there for myself just to keep track of it. And so as I go through my comments tonight, I'm going to reference the pages in the residential design guidelines that I get that from. I think that's a good idea. Just one, because I think it shows the applicant and residents that these comments are grounded in something real in the design guidelines. They're not just cut from whole cloth. And secondly, I think it's a good lesson for the applicant to see what an incredibly valuable tool the residential design guidelines are, if you choose to avail yourself of them and read them prior to submitting your project. So to start with, the guidelines on page 13 say specifically, all architectural styles are encouraged to be researched so they can be appropriately represented before projects are submitted to staff and the planning commission. And I'm noting that because you'll see why in a minute. But they also say on page 14, new homes should incorporate a specific architectural style compatible with those found in the neighborhood. So in a neighborhood like this one, there's a large range of styles present. And when you have a neighborhood like that, the authenticity of the design, I think, speaks as strongly to compatibility as does the style that you choose itself. So the following elements, and again, the guidelines specifically charge the applicant with using architectural details that are consistent with the style that they choose. So this is a Monterey Revival style, and this project has several design elements that are not compatible with that chosen style. The balcony railings should not be made of metal. They should be made of wood. The primary horizontal roof line, as viewed from the front elevation, should be level across the full span of the structure with no peaks. If you look at sheet number T04, and if you look at the south elevation, which is the front of the house, and if you look at the right-hand side of the balcony where it joins into the building, if you go straight up from there, you'll see the roof peaks above that. And that is a distortion that you don't normally find on a Monterey Colonial. And I'm going to give you some more information about that in a minute, but I'll sort of tie this into what Commissioner Chang said, that addition, that protrusion off to the west side of the house on the left-hand side of that same elevation, it is very extensive. You do see protrusions like that on Monterey Revival, but not to that extent. And it does throw off the balance of the house. Typically, you see in a Monterey Revival, the wings of the house are elongated rectangles, and they're either configured in an L configuration or a T configuration. And it allows for a fairly simple roof plan. This house is basically configured in a square footprint because it's trying to capture as much interior volume as possible. And because of that, it forces the roof plan to become very complicated, and you have to put that peak in there to avoid flat spaces or crickets. But it's not compatible with the style. Visually, it will not look like a Monterey Revival. The bay windows are not true to the chosen style. Again, you do not see bay windows on Monterey Revival. That style is characterized by simplicity of design with very little embellishment. The proposed exterior wall treatments are not authentic to Monterey Revival. Most commonly, you see stucco on the first floor and the second floor, or you'll see multiple materials used where it's usually stucco on the first floor and wood siding on the second floor. You also do occasionally see masonry, like is proposed in this project, but it is never flat stacked stone like is being proposed. It's exclusively brick. The other problem is that when masonry is used on the exterior on the first floor, it is never applied as a wainscoting where it only extends up the wall partially. It always extends the full height of the first floor. And again, it's brick. The thin, narrow chimney is not characteristic. The Monterey Revival style is known for chimneys of substantial massing, and again, brick, not flat stacked stone. That's Residential Design Guidelines 10, page 10 and 36. I'm going back to page 14 of the guidelines. Homes of traditional architectural styles should incorporate traditional elements of design. So again, they've chosen Monterey Revival, which is absolutely a traditional architectural style. So you would not expect to see any contemporary design elements. So here are some design elements that may work on a modern style house, but they don't work on a Monterey Revival. The excessively wide fascia boards, that's not traditional, and they have a very clumsy, heavy-handed appearance. These houses are very simple and elegant, and that's not how they look. The numerous proposed plate windows and doors should have appropriate traditional divided lights. You don't see plate glass in these homes of this era. The proposed entry door with the elliptical glazing and full height side lights is not traditional. Any glazing, if there is glazing on the door, should be very minimal, and it should be square or rectangular in shape. Elliptical glazing in a door is just, there's no precedent for it in early traditional architecture. The side lights should only extend a half to 2/3 the height of the door, not the full length. You just don't see side lights that go all the way down to the ground in a home of this time period. At 8 feet tall, the proposed entry door is excessive and it lacks appropriate human scale. And then there's a bay window in the kitchen, which again, the bay window in and of itself is not compatible with the Monterey style. But to have an unsupported bay, yes, with modern materials, we can build a bay window that doesn't need any support underneath it, but it doesn't look right on a home of this traditional styling. You need to have some support under it, but again, shouldn't be a bay window at all on a Monterey. These are from the guidelines, page 26, 29, and 32. And then I have just a few broad general comments, and they sort of line up with what Commissioner Chang has already stated and Commissioner Wright. The plate heights on both the first and second story, they're just not consistent with those that are found in the neighborhood. The guidelines on page 26 specifically discourage that. The rear balcony, I believe, is a privacy concern, particularly for the neighbor to the west on California and to the rear at 2230 Hammett. The location of that balcony and the landscape plan is not appropriate to preserve the privacy expectations of those neighbors. Residential, the guidelines, page 24. The use of vinyl fencing is strongly discouraged in the city. I don't see a place for that. Guidelines, page 41. The proposed exterior post lights, I think, are appropriately sized. And I'm glad to hear the applicant was wanting to use the mid-range size of the wall fixtures, because I believe that also is the most appropriate size. My concern is the clear seated glass of all those fixtures is not sufficiently occluded to prevent glare. And again, the guidelines, page 37, specifically discourage that and that you need to attend to light leaving your property and going on to neighboring properties. Lastly, I don't believe that the landscape plan is adequate. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to also echo the comments of Commissioner Chang and Commissioner Wright on the setback. In particular, because you're putting in this large home flanked by 2 single-story homes. And in fact, of the 10 homes on the entire streetscape between the 2 blocks or between the 2 streets, there's only 3 2-story homes. And you know, they don't have the plate heights that this one does. Something has to change there. It's too in your face. Back to the landscape plan. No large tree species have been proposed that would provide adequate tree canopy. I mean, one of the best things that you can do to soften the impact of a large home like this going in to this neighborhood. And even if you reduce the plate heights and you reduce the volume of the home and get it down to where it works, it's still a 2-story home flanked by single stories and on both sides of the street. You need something like substantial trees to soften it. They have proposed trees. Give me a minute here. They have proposed trees, the cherry and the maple in the front. But you look at where those are located on the landscape plan, those are very close to the house. I mean, you couldn't lay down between the house and the tree trunk. Those trees will never be allowed to grow to their full height and spread, because if they were let to grow to their full potential, they would severely encroach on the house. So I don't have any confidence that those trees are going to be substantial in size. There's ample area in the area framed off by the circle driveway for a large tree or trees. And there should be at least one specimen of a tree. And it should be a species that has the potential to grow substantially large, like in excess of the height of the structure. So I'm talking like an oak, a sycamore, a pine, not a tababuya, not a strawberry tree, not a crepe myrtle, something that's going to get big to soften that impact. And that's guidelines page 39. So that's all I have to say, surprisingly.
Tell us what you really think.
Commissioner Dustin, it's always very hard to follow you.
Sorry.
I really truly don't have anything to add. I think that what your comments were eloquently made. The one thing that I had concerns with regards to at least the arborist report is the idea that there would be the ability to transplant a king palm. And the only reason that was on my radar is because I happen to know, having 5 king palms in my yard right now that have to be removed and 11 king palms in the neighborhood that have to be removed. They are currently, and per the Huntington Library, king palms are currently being infected by a parasite that is killing all of them in Southern California. And so, you know, any landscape plan that is including a king palm raises red flags to me. Arborist report that thinks it can transplant one raises red flags to me, along with the additional comments that Commissioner Dustin has already raised. I will say I do not have a problem with the carrot wood being removed, because it, believe it or not, is, and you guys know this is my little calling card, carrot woods emit the most methane gas of any trees, and so they're actually very environmentally unfriendly. I know this because my street is lined with carrot woods, and I did some research on it, and believe it or not, I would like them to be replaced with something that is not so environmentally detrimentous. So along those lines, and just to move this conversation forward, and I'm not sure, I'll just propose this question to Commissioner Dustin because of your extensive comments. Do you feel that this is a project that can be continued and the adjustments being made? Other commissioners, with the comments that you have heard from your fellow commissioners, do you feel confident with a continuance?
I feel like there a continuance could be achieved, and the comments, I mean, I saw the applicant taking notes. So if they were taking good notes and, you know, are meaningful in applying some of the comments that they heard this evening, I think that there is still a project here. I don't think it's a project that's not salvageable per se. That's my take.
I would agree with Commissioner Chang. I don't see any reason why a 2-story solution could not work on this site. And I think that the Monterey Revival style is an absolutely appropriate choice. My only concern is just from, and this has been borne out by past experience, that applicants are very quick to make changes when it's relatively simple fixes like windows or railings or doors or things like that. It's the larger, more painful changes like losing interior volume, changing plate heights, adjusting setbacks. So with that being said, again, I would hope that the applicant is hearing that. I think that this is something that could be continued.
Okay, Commissioner Wright, do you have thoughts on that?
I would support a continuance as well, not only for the reasons already stated, but because of COVID, because of our staffing changes, these applicants they've waited a long time. Let's allow them at least the opportunity to move it forward with us. But yes, I agree with the Commissioner Dustin in particular that let's hope they're taking really good notes and they understand that our comments are very serious if they want us to approve it next time.
Commissioner Okazaki, would you agree with everything?
You know, I would hate to deny the owners this project, but I understand all the details that Commissioner Dustin explained, not consistent with the design guidelines. I've seen other projects in the area, with wrought iron, more recently near Lacey Park, and the property directly in front of this project, right at the corner, southwest corner. The wrought iron, I was originally worried about it, but the wrought iron looks really good. But the setback issue and the platelet height, I think, is problematic to try to resolve it with this plan. I like the idea of using the landscape area between the hedge and the circular driveway to install some large trees that would mitigate the view of a, the two-story building. I think that would help to reduce the size of the massing of the two-story, although 2 stories. I don't know what the height of the 2 stories are, the 2 buildings to the east that are similar to this project. If the height is similar to those 2 buildings, I think this will fit in better. And with the additional landscaping, including trees that could be planted in the front area, I think it would significantly reduce the visual massing of this 2-story building. Commissioner Dustin's concept or his belief was that this might be several hundred square feet bigger than the average of other properties. And so, like I said, the owner and the architect's gonna have to redesign this. So I'm supporting everybody's points of view that maybe we should not just continue this, but maybe deny this project at this time. I'm complete. I'm finished.
Okay, thank you so much. I agree with what all of my colleagues have said. The one thing that I will say is that, and I know it's not a requirement, but as we consider continuing this, that I would like to see the owners or the owner's representative make an effort to contact the legal neighborhood with the new plans, so that we can really have a gauge of what the neighbors feel of this. They haven't seen anything since October. And obviously we all are very respectful of what has happened in terms of staff changes and COVID-19, et cetera. But it would say a lot to me as we look towards redesign if there was that effort made to inform the neighbors. Again, it is, I believe, not a requirement, but I think that given past comments, I think that all of the commissioners would agree that that would be very valuable to us. So with that said, do we have—
Commissioner Boyle, can
Yeah.
I just, your comments just reminded me of another concern I had, and I wanted to share it real quick or make a request if I could. I did notice that in the plans, there were no isometric drawings, which is a requirement for any second or any 2-story proposal. I had expected to see it in the presentation, but I would like to see any plans that we get in the future, if we continue this, to include an isometric bird's eye view drawing perspective of the project. In particular, because we don't have the ability to look at the story poles. And that really does help get a visualization for the massing. And then secondly, although I am extremely thankful that we now have hard copy plans again.
Yes.
Again, it is a requirement according to city ordinance that the floor plan and the elevations be 1/4 inch scale, not 1/8 inch scale. And it really helps when you're trying to look at the details to have that larger scale. And I just think we need to hold people to what is in the ordinance. It's only fair. Everybody else has to do it. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
And given that, I'd be happy to make a motion for a continuance.
Well,
I like to, excuse me.
yes, Commissioner
Yeah,
Okazaki.
sorry. I was concerned about I believe this the owner on the west side of the project. He was objecting, or he or she was objecting to the project, but did not identify what that objection was, and I would appreciate if we could get a clarification and make sure that we do try to address the neighbor's concern about their objection. He was the only one. Everybody, the 4 people who did not comment, but the 6 people supported it. So majority of the people supported it, but this one neighbor that's immediately adjacent to him had a concern. So I would hope that the owners and the architect would try to resolve their concern in the new design.
Thank you. And I was also going to add, before we make a motion, I believe, do we need to ensure from the architect's representative, like that if we do a continuance, that it can be like, should it be continued to April 27th or May 25th? Like, can they have time to do it by April 27th? And if not, I believe they have to waive a right to a speedy review. I don't know if that's still a requirement, since it has been so long since we've discussed this. So I would look to our city attorney and our planning director to confirm anything that we need to discuss before we do a continuance.
Chair Boyle, I was just going to add that you might want to inquire whether the project or this issue can be continued to a specific date. And if that's the case, you may want to move to reopen the public hearing and then continue it to that date. The general rule is that additional public notice wouldn't be required in that situation. If you're continuing the hearing to an unspecified date, then I would recommend that additional public notice be given in accordance with whatever the applicable rules are. So I guess the question, as you just noted, is a good one for the applicant, and they can answer that question, whether they can bring it back within a certain amount of time. I think the longer the period is between now and whatever the continued hearing date is, we may want to consider providing public notice in any event.
Okay, to the applicant and the applicant's representative, given everything that you've heard tonight, do you think that you would be able to provide us new plans for the April 27th meeting, which I believe means that you would have to have them submitted in 2 weeks or 3 weeks on April 13th? Or would you like an unspecified date, moving it to May? I look to planning director Figueroa to help guide, and Camelia to help guide when the plans would be needed in order to make like an April date, our next planning commission versus a May date, to help inform the representatives and the applicant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. Thank you for the comments from commissioners. Yeah, since there are also some major comments may affect the design, I don't think we should be able to turn in the plan, by the deadline of the April planning commission meeting and the public hearing notice. So I would like to request the unspecific date.
Okay.
And yeah, for the place high, Chairman, can I ask one more question?
I assume so, since this is technically opening it back to the public comment in order to get your feedback with regards to the date.
Yeah, I think that the plate height and the more setback, I do need to discuss with the owner because they prefer the consider the heavy traffic of California. Probably a nice private backyard is their preference. So I need to talk to them, see if they like to go for that and more setback. If not, sure, we will, maybe a different route. But my question is the setback and the plate height, we would consider that. Only the west side of the one-story wing, I believe, yeah, just like Commissioner Dustin said, it is some the Monterey revival. It happens on some Monterey revival style, and we also consider why the one-story proposed is less massing along the driveway. So I'd like to know if that's acceptable. If not, that's gonna make this plan even more required even more major change. So can you just clarify that if that one-story west wing is acceptable?
Well, the way that I will answer that is, at least, and I can be corrected, but from what I understand, that the adopted design guidelines in our new housing element that was just enacted, and somebody will have to inform me, I believe it was February, but I may be corrected, but in the most recently adopted guidelines per our new housing element, we limit the plate height to 8 feet for new developments. So I'm just giving you that as a point of fact as you go back to design these. That is the new. So anything beyond that would require, I believe, a conditional use permit or variance. What?
No, probably. Yeah, I didn't make myself clear. I just wanted to see if that we have one story, the portion on the west side along the driveway. And I know the Commissioner Dustin mentioned that it happens, but he got some concern. But I would like to know if that's acceptable. If that's not, then that's gonna we required some even more major change, and we'd like to know if that's can Commissioner Dustin make it more specific?
I'm not sure of what I'm being asked. I just would say that I don't think that I or anyone else can give a pre-approval to an element of the style or the design. It has to be considered in totality when it's brought to us.
Exactly. Yes, I would agree. So again, to move this forward, you would like an unspecified date with regards to the continuance that we're gonna be.
Can I ask if the owner, Mr. Wayne, has any comments?
Well, thank you for all your comment. I do have one question. What's the maximum height that I have right to build my second-story building?
I think that that's something that you will have to address when you go back to the city and work with our planning department, given our new housing element.
I did ask the planner and the previous planner, and they all agree that this is allowable within the allowance.
I understand.
That's why we submitted.
I understand what you're saying. I will tell you that, as of this year, we approved new design guidelines as per our new housing element. And unfortunately, I don't have it entirely in front of me to recite all of the new guidelines. And that's why I would suggest that you work with our planning staff, because there are new things that had to be codified with regards to the California state requirements for our housing element.
Okay, then the second question is, I believe the new design not only approved by the previous planner, and also I don't believe it's any taller or higher than my neighbor west to my building. Number one. Number two, all our immediate neighbor in the back, our two-story building. That's the correction I want to say. Number three, when we approach our neighbor for signature, we carry our building plan to show everybody, just for your reference.
I understand.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I completely understand and hear any frustration you may have. One of the reasons that these plans come before our commission is to provide feedback for what we feel makes your housing, your plans compatible or not within our within the community.
That's definitely my intention. I don't want my building to be a monster.
Right.
I enjoy the community. I enjoy the neighborhood.
And
that's why I spend money to build my home and wanted to live here forever. Now, that's not beside the question. We would like to see, we do not just arbitrarily choose the height. We ask, we try to talk to the planner before. I guess my next question would be, when Leon mentioned that he need to ask me is, okay, we would agree to work inclusive with all your comment, but we definitely would have to consult the planner for the new criteria, so to speak, before we can. I don't want to waste your time to come back next time and you have another.
And what I want to say is, I think all of us understand the frustration of that there has been, you know, who you were dealing with previously may have expressed one thing, and regardless if it were at that time, it could have come before this commission and we would have still made the same comments. And so I hope you understand that with these comments that we are providing you the specifics around which you can work with the city to create a new plan in which we will be able to approve, to make it a home that you really love, as well as something that we feel meets the design guidelines that fit into the city.
We'll definitely try that.
Okay. And so along those lines, as we move forward, because I believe that all of the commissioners are going to agree to a continuance, we are saying, you are agreeing that you want an unspecified date for continuance as you work on these, and not be limited to the next planning commission meeting, which would be in April. So your plans would have to be due in the next 2 weeks or so. Is
Can
that?
I ask one more question? What would be the next commissioning?
It would be
after the April.
It would be the 4th week of May. But it may be better for you to do an unspecified date.
Okay. Okay, I'll take that advice then.
Okay. So
Chair Boyle,
yes.
If there's going to be a continuance to an unspecified date, my recommendation would be to move to reopen the public hearing, but we would still provide additional public notice when the project is ready to be brought back to you. So it'd be a motion to reopen the public hearing and continue to an unspecified date to be determined between the applicant and staff.
Is that a reopening the public hearing tonight? I'm sorry that I don't understand, because this is
Well, I mean, if you're,
I've heard this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
so the public hearing was closed.
Right.
You're continuing the hearing. I think it would be better to continue the public hearing portion so that the matter can be discussed publicly at the next meeting, but that might be belt and suspenders, because I think given that we're not picking a specific date, we are going to, I think, in order to avoid any potential issues, provide additional public notice in accordance with applicable code provisions at that time. But I will leave it up to you to fashion the motion how you'd like, but that would be my recommendation. And again, as I'm looking at this right now and just thinking about, how it would work with an unspecified date, I do think it'd be a belt and suspenders approach, but, giving more notice is better. I don't think anyone has signed off from the meeting tonight that was here for that item that's not still here, but in any event, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, so Commissioner Wright, I saw you thinking very deeply about this, and so I'm wondering if you have constructed a motion?
No, sorry, I was confused.
Okay.
I think your recommendation is to move the public hearing, to continue the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so instead of continuing just the project, if you will, we would continue the public hearing to an unspecified date that will be determined between the applicant and staff after providing notice to the relevant neighborhood.
Correct.
I'm sorry, and would there be a requirement to waive the Permit Streamlining Act as well with the unspecified continuance?
I think that's what they've done but we can make it more.
But does the applicant actually have to state verbally in this hearing that they would waive the act? Or waive the Permit Streamlining Act?
Yes, if that's still required. I understand from staff that with COVID, there was a relaxation of permit streamlining. I, for one, am not sure if that's still. So again, to the city attorney's point, we could certainly be cautious and ask the applicant to please waive any permit streamlining act deadlines.
And the applicant or the applicant's representative?
Well, I think the applicant.
Yeah.
I don't think I understand the question.
So we are asking for now, do you waive your right to the Permit Streamlining Act? I'm sorry, I don't know how to verbalize all of this, but normally every resident of California is given the right to streamline permit process. And by continuing this, we need to ask you if you waive your right to that, and you have to agree or not agree.
What is the streamline permitting?
The Streamline Permitting Act is that essentially once you submit your application that we will move it forward as quickly and as streamlined as possible. And so we're asking that you waive that in order to have this continuance. And if not, then I think our only option is that we will have to deny this.
Okay, now would it be simpler if we cannot make it the next one and we agree to make it the next one? Would that be easier for everybody? We commit a certain date, like say 3 months?
That's something that you and your architect have to discuss, because he indicated that he needed more time than just the next.
If you can, we schedule on the May planning commission. I think we should have been no problem to make it May planning commission.
Yeah, that's probably better for everything.
Great. So then.
Chair Boyle, I think that essentially answers the question. They're willing to agree to the continuance to the May meeting.
Okay.
And that will be their target. And I think that is, sufficient to answer the question that you're posing. I think they're
fantastic
with the continuance. The alternative would be if they're not in agreement with the continuance, then we would come back at the April meeting with a resolution of denial. But I think with their preferences, what I'm hearing, and you can inquire, is that they would prefer to have the matter continued to a future hearing.
Okay, so as I understand it, they are agreeing to continue the matter to the May 25th meeting. Given all of that, can I ask for a motion?
You're on mute if you want to say something, Commissioner Dustin.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to continue project DR 21-14 HP and DR 21-59 at 2221 East California Boulevard until the May Planning Commission meeting, with new public noticing to be enacted or required.
I'll second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please, Camelia?
Yes, I just wanted some clarification. I know Director Figueroa had raised hand for a while. I don't know if you want to add
Oh,
something.
I'm so sorry. I did not see that. Director
That's not a
Figueroa.
problem. I was just going to chime in on the continuance. I don't think the Permit Streamlining Act will be an issue
Okay,
with this project if you were to continue it to a date uncertain. And the reason why I would recommend a date uncertain instead of May is because there were a number of issues that were mentioned tonight. And so staff would want to make sure that those issues were addressed. And staff also has to write a staff report. So I would recommend a date uncertain, but if the pleasure of the commission is to continue it to the May date, that's not a problem either. We might have to come back and ask for a continuance at that moment if the applicant is not ready to submit plans. So either way works. That was the only thing that I wanted to mention.
How about if
Thank
I amend my motion to be the same motion with the exception that it will be at a meeting date to be agreed upon by city staff and the applicant? Is that sufficient?
it seems like it. So do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So now may we have the roll call?
Chair Boyle, just really quickly, and just to clarify,
Yeah.
because it is a data uncertain,
Yeah.
staff will provide public notice for this project.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving forward with the motion, I just want to list the items that was directed at the applicant to revise. There was concerns with massing, plate height, the prevailing setback of the front, issues with the compatibility and the typical architectural style of the Monterey Revival, and referencing the residential design guidelines, and outside recommendations for the Monterey Revival style. And then I wanted potential clarification. There was a question about providing a bigger setback, side setback. Was that for the west side or the east side of the building? Or both? Just so the applicant staff is clear.
Are you talking about the single story protrusion that Commissioner Chang discussed?
There was just a mention that the commission would like to see a larger setback than is currently proposed. And I just wasn't clear if it was for both sides or one side.
I think the
I thought it was
comments,
the front.
yeah, the comments were revolved around the front setback of the actual south facing elevation of the home. And then also the west elevation to the west of the property that protrudes off from the two-story structure would also be reduced in size. And that would also increase the overall setback.
So the west side on the second story, okay.
Mhm.
And then to include a larger tree canopy as part of the landscape plan, a larger tree in the center of the circular driveway. And then the king palms, is the commission requesting to remove them altogether, or are they still okay with the proposal?
I don't have a comment about that. I'm just saying that that it was red flag that they think that they can relocate them because of the disease that is going throughout Southern California. So I guess if anything, I would suggest that they do a tree permit to remove all of them and replace with a large canopy tree, because I
Okay,
doubt it'll survive.
and that the proposal of one of the replacement trees of the carrotwood tree was not, would the planning commission would like to see a different tree proposed instead of the carrotwood?
I believe I saw that the carrotwood was getting removed, and so I was just saying that I was fine with that.
Okay.
And and please make note of the vinyl fencing. At the very least, I'm trying to think of anything else that hasn't been brought up.
The vinyl removal of the.
Well, vinyl fencing isn't allowed.
It's highly discouraged, yes. Okay. And then,
I think that what Commissioner Dustin was saying is that with this particular architectural style, vinyl fencing is incompatible. Correct, Commissioner Dustin?
I have never seen a proposal for vinyl fencing approved in all my years on the design review and the planning commission for any style of project.
okay, and then, requiring that the elevation of the floor plan and elevations are to scale as required by code. And renoticing of the public hearing for the future planning commission date. So this concludes all the, if I haven't missed anything, this should conclude all the corrections that you're requesting of the applicant. And a part of this motion to continue the project. I can do a roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Boyle?
I'd like to get some feedback from the other board members about, commissioners, I'm sorry, about the two gates for the driveway. Given that there are no gates that I saw on the north side of California, are we okay with that? That's going to be an issue for the homeowner. I think they want to secure their property. So they're putting driveway gates. I saw it on the plan, so I'm just wondering, there are no other
You're right.
driveway gates on the
Yeah.
north side,
Right.
so.
And
And
those
I want to
gates-
give a
Can
direction.
I address the question? The two neighbor to our west.
I'm sorry, did you close
Hey.
the public hearing
Okay.
there?
The two
Or is it
neighbors have them?
open?
I didn't
Yes.
notice. Okay, sorry,
So
bad eyes. I didn't
I
notice.
would, so to staff, I would just recommend that you review the recording because there were a lot of other suggestions that were made with regards to the roof line, the exterior design elements. The windows are without the division. I mean, there was a lot of other things, the bay windows off of the kitchen, I believe. So I would recommend that you review this recording and know that it's more than what you just mentioned in terms of why we're calling for the continuance and what we are looking to see.
Yes, and that was, yeah, that was meant to be capturing all the issues for the design of the Monterey Revival architectural proposal. So we will go back and make sure
Okay.
all those fine details are
Okay.
clarified and fixed.
Okay, thank you. Are we able to do a roll call now? Do we have everything addressed?
Okay, I can do roll call again.
Thank you.
So Chair Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dustin,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
and alternate Commissioner Okazaki.
Yes,
So that's 5-0 for the continuance of this project.
Thank you so much. Is there anything left to be said, or shall I adjourn the meeting?
I have a question for staff that I was just curious about something.
Oh, there's
I
nothing.
noticed a change on the neighborhood approval letters, that now the categories are do not approve, object, do not object, and no response. Whereas before it was object, approve, and no response. I like the change, but I'm just kind of curious if there was anything specific that motivated that change.
Yes, so this was actually a request by the design review committee because on the neighborhood input letters, there are those three options. I object to the project, I do not object to the project, and then no response. So they suggested that the staff report reflect those three options as on the letter.
Great.
And with that, I will adjourn this evening's meeting and I will see you
Have a
April.
hand.
Oh, yes. Planning Director Figueroa.
Thank you, Chair Boyle. There were a couple of things that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting. One was just to thank all of you for your hard work in the housing element. The City Council adopted the housing element back in February. That was submitted to HCD and they're currently in their 90-day review period. And recently, the City Council adopted a resolution to make some changes to boards and commissions. And one of those was to align the starting time of commissions to 6 o'clock to be consistent with the City Council's starting time.
6 o'clock.
So starting on your May meeting, the meeting, if it gets adopted on the next City Council meeting, the May meeting would start at 6 p.m. So I'll notify you in the April meeting of the change if it gets adopted during the director's report. And that's it for me. Thank you.
So I'm gonna, meeting adjourned. I will see you all April 27th and I look forward to it. Have a wonderful evening.